Are y'all ready to head off the trails? I'm the Cryptid Huntress, Jessica Jones, and I'm ready to take you guys on a mysterious journey right now. We welcome you guys to Off the Trails right here on the Spaced Out Radio's YouTube channel. If you guys haven't hit subscribe yet, please do. We would love to have you. Shout out to Bumblefoot for that amazing intro music. We really appreciate that. And you guys be sure to follow us on social media, on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, on Instagram at Spaced Out Radio Show, and on TikTok at Spaced Out Radio. You guys can find me at thecryptidhuntress.com, where I have all of my shows listed, all the events that I'm going to be at, all my social media stuff, whatever y'all need. It's right there on my YouTube, on my website. And also, I do have a YouTube channel. That's the Cryptid Huntress. Please go subscribe if you guys haven't already. I would love to have you guys over there as well. Also, if you'd like to support what we're doing here at Spaced Out Radio, we have a Space Travelers Club over on Patreon. That's our Patreon. We would love to have you guys there. And also, I have a Patreon of my own. That's the Cryptid Huntress over on Patreon. All right. You guys, we have a fantastic show for y'all tonight. We're talking about reptilian humanoids, which means that we are going to absolutely get a Wikipedia context bar underneath this video immediately after the show that tells us that reptilian and humanoids are fake. Okay. It happens to all my reptilian shows. So y'all buckle your seatbelts tonight. I have Barry Littleton here in the studio. We're going to be talking about reptilians tonight, and so we're gonna go hard on the reptilian topic tonight too. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Don't forget that right after this show, After Hours has a great program set up for us. Okay, so go there right after our show tonight. All right, let's get to our guest. Barry Littleton was born awake with fragmented past life memories. He began having paranormal experiences at a young age. These experiences included telepathic awareness, seeing or feeling ghosts, and various inorganic beings. These encounters and some of the entities themselves had a distinct extraterrestrial origin. That led him to a lifetime of research and exploration into the metaphysical and paranormal fields. In 2010, Barry had a tragic car accident resulting in 4 catastrophic brain injuries, along with a near-death experience, and the event was life-changing. It predicted that the doctors predicted that his condition would remain in a near vegetable state, but he survived the catastrophic event with mental faculties intact. I can't talk tonight, y'all. It spurred him to come forward about his contact and his paranormal experiences. And y'all know that I do lots of work with Barry. He's one of my favorites. He's become one of my besties. And so we have a lot to talk about tonight. Please help me welcome to the show my friend, Barry Littleton. Hey, Barry.
Hey, what's up, Jessica? What's happening?
Hey.
Can you hear me?
I can. It sounds like there might be a little delay.
There's a horrible echo I'm hearing on you. Do I need to sign off and come back on?
Let's see. Yeah, it sounds like there's a little echo in there. Let me check my earbuds. Okay. I mean, if you'd like, you can.
I just heard that about 15 seconds after I said it.
I know. I hope it's not mine. Okay, because I'm actually on my phone tonight. So it could be mine. I don't know. Let's try to wing it. Okay, we're gonna have a little bit of a delay, perhaps. If you'd like to log off, we can, Barry. If you want to try that, or we can just wing it. This might make for an uncomfortable show for everybody. If we've got
I can't do it because right now I'm saying something. I raise my hand when I hear myself speaking.
Yes. Yeah, that's very delayed. Do you want to log off? Okay, log off. Okay, all right, y'all. We're gonna get this worked out tonight because we're gonna be talking about reptilian humanoids. Now, for everyone who's watching, a lot of y'all know that Barry and I both have had up close and personal contact with extraterrestrials. Okay, but neither of us has ever had an encounter with reptilians. Okay, so, but Barry is more knowledgeable about reptilian humanoids than anybody that I know. And so I thought it was important to bring him on tonight to talk about this. Also, Barry has a fantastic YouTube channel. Okay, and it's just Barry Littleton over on YouTube. And so you guys go check that out. He has videos about, the latest one is actually about, it's called the Black Reptilians. Okay, and it's about like melanin dominated reptilians and stuff. It's really interesting. We're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. And a lot of different regions of Africa actually had apparently had contact with the reptilians as well. So we're going to obviously talk about that. Before Barry comes back, though, I'm going to talk about with you guys some of the modern day encounters with reptilians, or what people think are reptilians. I think everybody's pretty familiar with this woman who saw something on a plane. She just didn't know what she was seeing, right? She said, that MFer is not real. Okay. And some people assume that potentially she saw a reptilian, that she was sitting next to one on an airplane. Okay, so that sparked a lot of interest in reptilians modern day. Also, we'll hear reports of people seeing famous singers, okay, people at concerts shape-shifting into 12-foot reptilians. Now, is it real? I don't know. It sounds kind of holographic. I don't know if it's real or not, but we do hear about this occasionally in pop culture. Okay, so we're going to just say pop culture. Okay. But yeah, it's becoming a lot more prevalent these days than I ever knew. Of course, there's also Secret Service detail. Okay, I know y'all are familiar with this. I believe that President Obama was giving a speech, and there were rumors of a reptilian as part of a shapeshifter, basically, as part of his security detail. And some people had snapped some pictures of this. The guy looks as though he could have some reptilian characteristics. So I don't know. Maybe we'll talk about that with Barry. Let's see if we got this worked out a little bit. Hey, Barry.
Hey, what's
Is it better?
That's much better. I don't hear it now. Do you?
Okay. No.
Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Much better.
Okay.
Well, I was getting a 10-second delay. It was so weird. It's like I was in a time vortex, a temporal thing or some temporal shift. Anyway.
The StreamYard wormhole. Let me tell you, it happens pretty often. There's something screwy with StreamYard. It's usually StreamYard, what I've found. So, but we're back. I just went over some modern day reptilian sightings with the audience. Okay, so to save you the horror of having to deal with that, just kidding. Of talking about the lady on the plane that said that MFer is not real. So that was something that was pretty recent, and people were assuming that was some sort of a reptilian shapeshifter. What do you think about these reports of reptilian or just shapeshifters, period, in modern day culture that we're having?
First, I want to say hello to your audience and hope everybody had a good holiday. One thing that I think needs to be kind of kept paramount is that this woman, it's a very flimsy story. And for all we know, that's somebody that has brain chemical problems and maybe mental illness, and they're on there just tripping out on a flight. People get stressed out, especially if you got bipolar 2. Some people don't do good on flights and have that. So who knows? Is that really what you're seeing, or was it really a reptilian there? I mean, it's just a little controversial for me, but that's just me personally. But
Yeah, Derek's putting the other side of this conspiracy theory out there too. So on the screen, and it did seem, the whole thing did seem kind of staged to me and a little odd. So that's all. I'm going to leave that right there.
And they have actors that get paid to go around and do that in the Actors Guild. I'm just saying,
they do. They do.
Yeah.
It stirs up. It distracts us from what's really going on in the world. Okay, potentially. Mm-hmm. I think. Yeah.
There was a picture I had put up some time ago. It's called the Russian alien bomb photo, and it's a lady that was a flight attendant taking a picture of herself and behind her is this thing sitting in the seat that looks like a holographic type, some type of almost cybernetic reptilian gray type of thing, more of a gray type of thing. I don't know, but very interesting. And I think that that's something that's observing and getting caught on photo like that, and things that might be on these planes, you know, that are coming, that are dimensionally out of sync with us, or a different frequency, but are right there. Boom. It's very, very interesting, you know?
Yeah. I like how you said frequency, because I feel like a lot of the sightings that we're having today, even with anything in the cryptid community, okay, I always say that Bigfoot, even Dogman, the bigger cryptids, and even smaller cryptids, I think it's all a matter of being on that frequency that they're on, and that's how we see them. Because not everybody sees them, I don't think. Just like those orbs that my son and I saw, and his dad didn't see them. He could not see them at all, except for through his phone, the screen on his phone. So who's to say they're not right here in front of us? There are things like reptilians walking around, and just some of us see them and some of us don't.
Well, you know, the way I was taught was that, you know, the earth is like the layers of an onion. When you start dealing with frequency, vibrations, dimensions, you know, it's like the layers of the onion. And you know how many layers there are in an onion before you get to the core of it. So it's dimensionally that puts us in a whole nother realm, you know,
It does.
vibrationally, frequencies, and these beings that can shift over, whether it's Sasquatch or other beings that are using, you know, somebody I heard on your show the other day saying they thought they were using, or somewhere I heard this, they thought that they were using, Ms. Ron Moorhead, they were using actually not just the trees, but like air itself to actually using that to actually manifest and materialize and shift dimensions. Very interesting, you know. Anyway, I don't want to get too far off our reptilian talk. So.
Oh, but that would kind of combine with that information that I have about with my friend Tony. His uncle was seen running outside in the backyard one day, running from the cops. Okay, and he ran behind a tree, and then he came out the other side, a wolf, and ran off into the woods. And he came back from the woods. The dog or the wolf ran out of the woods later that day, and then as it went behind that tree, his uncle appeared on the other side. So trees could be a portal, but I don't know. Well,
I think so. I think so, especially when dealing with earth transport. That's
yes.
a whole other thing going on there.
It is. It is. Well, Sovereign Cosmic Wildman has a really interesting statement. He says, I've witnessed a fine young woman's eyes change to slits. This is real. Okay. And now I have actually seen a woman. We have a woman in our hometown that works at a restaurant, and her pupils are slits. I promise. I've seen them. I've seen them with my own eyes, and I have round pupils. Okay. At least today. No, I'm just kidding. I always have round pupils. I'm kidding. Yeah. So, but she has like slits for pupils. So I've actually seen this is like a real thing. And I don't know if it's like a genetic condition or maybe she's a reptilian. I don't know. But we see things like this today.
You know, I'm going to say something. Okay, let's start off with this. All right. First of all, I'm going to be absolutely upfront in that I personally have not seen, I've had experiences my whole life. I've been on almost 5 different types of craft. I've described them, okay? Different beings, but none of them have been reptilians. I have not encountered the reptilians. And the fact that I've not seen a 9-10 foot tall bipedal crocodile or alligator on a craft is cool with me. I'm all right. You know, but the same token, though, I think when looking into this, we got to really try to separate some things. One is the people that have actually physically seen one of these, not just so often that I hear people saying, "Oh, it was astral. I encountered one in the astral. It was doing this and that." And I'm not discrediting that at all, right? But that's a bit different than seeing one physically on board a craft coming up on you. So in that way, I'll address starting off with some of that data. One of the pictures I gave you that was Ray Hernandez's picture from FREE, the Foundation to Research Extraterrestrial Encounter. I'm sorry, he changed it to CCRI, contact modalities. But they did that incredible survey over 4,000 experiencers. Like when I took it, I had to skip this one. I'm one of the ones that skipped because I had not encountered reptilians. Excuse me. But when you actually look at that chart, first of all, that is not at all what you would expect to see out of the 789 people, 789 people that actually took that and answered that, look at that. It's a very skewed graph. Positive 14%, not negative 21%. And you've got over here the not sure, which is the 34%. That's the biggest part of this pie chart. So I asked Ray. He'd call every now and again and say, "Hey, Ray, what's up with that part?" And he said, "Well, actually, Barry, people have to fill out a few paragraphs or a few sentences on why." And a lot of them had said something similar, that when they encountered these beings physically, just seeing them was terrifying. But actually, they didn't do anything to them. They didn't harm them, which, maybe communicated information, stuff like that, but they didn't do anything. No experiments, no assaults, no anything. But just seeing them was so frightening. So that takes us to telling us that we're not being told through the media everything about them either. Because I would swear that chart should have been just full of all negative, what we hear about them. So it takes us into some of the things that I've heard about, the terrestrial reptilians we had here that would be called saurians. And we start looking at our fossil record, beings like the Hadrosaurus. I could give you a picture of that. And there was another one too, that with their brain function, they would have evolved more humanoid and would have been the dominant species on this planet, most likely. Had one of those floods that Randall Carson talks about. By the way, I met that guy at that conference in Vegas. We hung out for a little bit, and I really commend his work. And he told me something that actually he thought that there were about 18 major strikes over a 1,000-year period from that torrid meteor shower. Anyway, sorry, going forward. The Hadrosaurus then would have been the dominant form had something not have happened from that cataclysms. All right, that's what it appears, very much so. So when hearing with what we're told and what I hear also, what I read the first time I'd heard about the reptilians was in 1988, 87, 88 in the book from Barbara Marcinique called The Bringers of the Dawn. She kept calling them Lizzies. And that's the first time I had really heard about them in quote unquote contact literature outside of science fiction, And then the next person that comes up that really, I think, is giving us a big basis for what we're talking about now was the shaman Sangoma, Credo Mudua. Okay. And I gave you a picture of Credo. And Credo was the gentleman that really gave David Icke a bunch of his information concerning the reptilians. And he was what's called a Sangoma. Thank you. The Sangoma, that's him. Sangoma, for he's passed now, bless his heart. A Sangoma from Zulu tribe. So he's like a historian, a shaman, medicine man, all these things. And what he's wearing, when I sent you the picture, you mentioned something about, I really like that necklace he's got on. That's called the Necklace of the Mysteries. And it's something that's been heading down for generations. And you see on there, you've got warriors, you've got aliens, you've got a lot of stuff on there. And he got actually jumped on some train. He's 90 some years old, and that necklace got ripped off. So people jumped him on a train. Yeah, he's deceased now. But anyway, when talking about the reptilians, he went into great detail with David Icke about it. And a lot of what we hear about them now comes from this brother, straight up. And I think that needs to be acknowledged. Okay, he called them the Chitauri, Chitauri. And he described different classes of them. The worker class being, there you go. Thank you, Jessica. The class, and that mission's credo on there. He describes the worker class being more of what looks quite a bit like Darth Maul from Star Wars. And these beings that, like this one here, that have the nods on the head, the little knots and stuff. Okay, those being the more worker class. Then being, do you have these more another upper level that are like these more alligator crocodile looking things, and then you've got the royalty that have the wings. Okay, and when dealing with that, that'll take us into that other picture I gave you with the cat standing there with the wings, the winged Draco. But anyway, that's the Chitauri, and there's another picture of another Chitauri. Okay, that there. Let's talk about that real quick. And this is, I have to keep my personal opinion somewhat separate from information. All right, that picture is supposed to be Corey Good. Okay, now just check this out. Regardless of what he's been through and all that, I'm by no means on anybody's bandwagon here, all right? But nonetheless, I found this picture very interesting, and this is 2019, prior to him going through some of the controversy he's been in now, which is quite terrible. I'm not even going to touch that. But anyway, this picture, we just one-on-one talked to that cat, was on me all the time. The 3 days at that conference, one-on-one, we talked a lot. And one of the first time I asked him was, tell me about the brothers you met from an outside this solar system, you claim. And number two is, isn't this picture supposed to be you? And he said, yeah. And I want to know what the story about it. And I'll tell you, I read micro expressions and body language and gesture clusters. And if he was lying, it's pretty good, because something happened to that cat, I think. He starts telling me that he went, I want to say it was Silicon Valley or somewhere, his team had to go down and they're supposed to do a cleanup on this building that looked like it's abandoned. And then when they go in this elevator, they go down, and he starts mentioning that things are nicer in there than it should be. And they go down into this room. And when he walks out, and he said it smells like the most heavy smell of urine he'd ever smelled in his life. And then he started getting psychically accosted, and that thing came out from around the corner. And he said it was a horrible experience. And he looked pretty shook up when he said it. Could it have been an act? Yeah. But the fact is that I did detect some type of an Artron energy coming off this dude, meaning that he's been either like me on some of these craft or around some of these beings, some of them have the higher vibration that do something that irradiates your cells or something. I felt it on you, Jessica. That's how I knew you were a contactee, and you never even would tell me.
Right.
We're hanging out in person. You still wouldn't spill the beans.
Well, a lot of my experiences have just been kind of my experiences, and I'd never really felt comfortable talking about them with anyone other than my team, because we all experienced a lot of the same stuff. So it was really odd, that when I met you was my first public appearance. And the first time I ever spoke publicly about my Bigfoot research. So you were there. That was a historical week. Okay. And
so cool.
yeah, that was the first time I ever spoke publicly about any of that. And I got a really great reaction from everybody. And it was very encouraging. It was very supportive. And including you, and you and I had so much in common with our experiences. I felt comfortable talking to you about it. But heck, no, I wasn't going to open up to anybody about that. Yeah.
We met on Matt Delph was there. Give a shout out to Matt Delph that let me flabbergasted is the only word I could give that guy.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah. With that video.
That flabbergasted me. Not much I could say. I was tripped out. Anyway, back to the Chitauri. He describes how Credo describes sometimes some of them were known to eat people, eat children, and things of that nature. And then he described the type of hybrids and how actually you have these reptilians of all the classes that actually possess people in terms of, and I gave you another picture that's one that is David Ickey's book. I think it's The Biggest Secret. Maybe it's in that book. Sorry. In that book, The Biggest Secret. There it is. Thank you. And and it's showing there one of the reptilians possessing people from the astral through the chakras, the lower chakras, the sexual chakras. And, so that's one thing. And something interesting about when you look at that warrior class and you look at some of the brothers from some of the old tribes, you have one of those pictures too, that have the head put together, that's describing and looking at towards, there's a type of dinosaur that was called, oh Lord, I'm gonna get butchered on this. The Pachyla Palus, Pachaphalos, and it had the rocks on its head. And they were said that they were supposedly butted heads a lot. They were head butters with those rocks. But that's similar to what you see here being represented. And also when you look at these things like Darth Maul and this worker class. So that's just something I think that, turns up when you're looking at certain how some of these things were represented as being worshipped as deities and things of that nature. So anyway, going to what I understand about the Hadrosaurus and these beings that were the Saurians on Earth, and then you had the cataclysms. And if you look up the Hadrosaurus, its brain function was like way up there, like past killer whale function. which people look up killer whale brain function, and dolphin function is very high. And there you have right there is something similar. So that's the one thing, and they would have gone even more, humanoid. I think Star Trek Voyager even did an episode, something about that, and the beings they encountered in the other part of the galaxy that were related to them. So anyway, that's the Saurians. Some say that they don't like people because they're supposed to be the dominant species here, and they got forced underground. And I've heard mixed things. I've also heard that the Saurians are not negative. But then you've got this other species, the Draco, that come from the constellation Draco, and Orion. I've heard that area is infested with reptilians and hostile insectoids. Don't like that area of space personally, but to each their own, Anyway, and that they come here and then they start interacting with the Saurians, creating hybrids between them, and they're taking everything to a negative faction. Like when you look at things like what's called the Matilda McElroy interview, that being talks a lot about the reptilian faction and how that being more like almost what Star Wars would call a galactic empire type of a civil situation. So, it's just, I don't know where it begins and ends. And then you've got these beings that don't even come from this galaxy. We're dealing with millions of galaxies, and we're all hung up on these certain ones that are local in this local cluster. Then that takes us into, I'm gonna shut up because I'm talking too much, but that takes us into that video that I made. You mentioned, I think, right before I cut off, which is the melanin dominant black extraterrestrial. And look, when I do these sessions, hypnosis sessions for people's past life regression, all sorts of stuff comes up. And sometimes I'm just straight flabbergasted. It asks me to teach me everything just to be the maestro and keep conducting the session without just sitting there. Because it trips you out. The stuff that people's superconscious and subconscious has recorded on the soul life memory rate. It's a trip.
Wow.
And when they can access that, it's Anyway, sorry, I'm talking too much. You probably have a bunch of stuff you want to say. I haven't looked at the chat because I'm getting too excited. So sorry for talking too much.
Don't apologize. That's what we're here for. We're here to talk, Barry. Yes, I want to thank Annie B and Dry Toast. Thank you guys so much for the super stickers tonight. You guys are the best. I appreciate that. We appreciate that at Space Out Radio. Okay, so we were showing a picture. I just want to back up just a little bit, because that picture of that man with his forehead all squished up with this body modification, that's pretty serious. Okay, when you're doing that, we've also seen that with these elongated skulls, and there were cultures who would elongate their skulls to look like what I believe would be aliens. Okay, a race. Well, even today we have people who are putting like contacts in their eyes to look like they have slit pupils and stuff. People are getting plastic surgery to look like aliens and reptilians. I mean, there's like the reptile man or the lizard man, okay, who's like got tattoos all over his body, and he split his tongue in half so his tongue moves in two different directions.
Well, you got the 80s. The 80s, I think, was prime for that. You had something that I used to like watching on Saturday morning, the Sidney Marty Croft morning, Land of the Lost. Yeah, the Sea Stack. The Sea Stack were some type of reptiles. You had Captain Kirk. The one time William Shatner got his butt kicked was on that planet by that Gorn. It was just real slow, but it was some type of an advanced reptile. Then you go to V. You had Beastmaster, Mark Singer. He went from Beastmaster to the movie, to the series V. And V were all about reptiles. These cats are extraterrestrials. They look like people. And really underneath, it was eating like rats and stuff for breakfast and lying to people, But so you've got that faction of the reptilian thing that always comes up, Godzilla. You've got all this whole reptilian thing that's always been there. And people trip out, the reptilian part of the brain, and just tripping, So I'm not here to debate any of that. But these are things. And then we've got these figurines throughout history that you have some pictures of that show up. And personally, I think some of that could be time manipulation, to a degree. And how much just put some of these figurines in there. Yeah.
But, I mean, you know what? That is so wild that you said that, because we always at this point need to factor in the time travel and all these projects that our governments work on, like Project Pegasus. If they were actually sending kids back with the Montauk Project and Project Pegasus to go give messages to, you know, to our presidents and making sure, like, seeing who shot well, not I guess JFK too, but Lincoln, and giving George Washington messages and do whatever. Why would they not go put certain, objects into completely throw our history off into a whole different direction? Talking about timeline jumping, I mean, that would completely change our timelines.
And we don't know really what rules there are. Because if you look up things like what was it, David Lewis Anderson was talking about, what experiments they had actually done with the time reactor. And they were trying to get that patented by the United States for a while, and then he disappeared completely. But at least to my knowledge. Anyway, but he was talking about some things like the grandfather clause and certain things that we get in science fiction that don't seem to hold up with the time fields. So, I mean, but nonetheless, what they call the superluminal propagation of data is actually pushing like information backwards through time, through quantum tunneling, they call that. And that's being done right now. That's real. So, how do you know that they're not trying to send back some Morse code? Somebody's trying to send some Morse code in the private sector back to Hitler. Hey, do this, man.
Yeah.
I mean, this is real serious. And we don't know what else is going on because the private sector concerning time control technology, it's completely non-disclosed. It's not transparent at all. Until something shows up in our house that's affecting something, or in a hospital like an MRI or some of the techniques they have there. But these are things that we need to be aware of, more or less, a lot. Anyway, going back to wherever we were, I feel like I'm veering off on time technology. That's a whole other talk there. But
I was actually about to bring up the whole idea of like the entities coming out of our MRI machines too. I mean, I
told you what didn't happen. I'd heard that before, and the first time I heard that was like, this is going back before even it was like a Dreamland, when Art Bell was still doing Coast to Coast and Dreamland. That's even before 2000. And somebody called in an operator of an MRI and said that they see these entities coming out of them and off them and stuff. And then a bunch of people started calling them and communicating with them about it. So I found that fascinating. Then, decades later, I'm sitting in there getting my wisdom tooth x-rayed. I'm one of those people that didn't get them removed. And it's one of those things that are moving a little bit. And I mentioned something about MRIs and entities, and the woman looked at me real funny. She said, "Where did you hear that?" And I said, "Oh, weird, brother. It is what it is." And then she starts saying, I actually used to run the MRI machine at the hospital where I live. And she described how it's at a part of the hospital that's completely like almost just abandoned. And she said how that around the x-ray machines, they would see things sometimes. But then the ones that they would see around the MRI machine seemed to be stronger, and that they would follow them home and influence their dreams.
Mm-hmm.
And she said several technicians were talking about it, something they just don't talk about publicly. Yeah. So, it's food for thought. Take it for what it is. When you're dealing with that type of electromagnetic frequency, it's real fascinating. And going just a little bit forward, I'm just throwing this out for the audience. Why not? It's fun. It's not all reptilians, sorry. But when there's a lady named Gladys Cordova, Cordova, and she's got that site, GCU Peru. And that's one that you actually remote viewed as a blind target. You didn't know what it was. But one of the things that she sees on this mountain up there is these things that look like it almost look like dryer sheets or pieces of paper, and they're flying around and they're using these portals. There's some type of entities. But I mean, this is really interesting when dealing with what might actually operate on the electromagnetic frequencies as far as, existence. Something like, the black praying mantis we never hear about, and the black praying mantis hybrids, that they actually operate on the electromagnetic frequency, and that's what they deal with more. But we don't hear about that very much. Anyway, sorry, back to reptilians eating people and making hybrids. Let's go back to that.
Man, it's my favorite. Just kidding. Yes. Okay, Amy, that's a good point. Yes. Amy says it's always a wild ride when Jessica and Barry share their experiences. Thank you, Amy. Thank you for that super chat. That's so
What's
sweet.
up, Amy? Amy, I
Yeah,
emailed you twice.
that's right. It's a
I'm
wild
sure
ride.
I'm sure that's the same Amy. I wanted to know that. Maybe it went to your spam though, but I did return your email. I appreciate you reaching out.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. Yeah. It's always a wild ride. That's why I love having Barry here, y'all. Everybody knows I love Barry being here. We have the most amazing conversations. And so I know the audience enjoys it as much as I do. But yeah, it's really wild. Okay. Now, the girl in her gong. Okay, go ahead.
One other thing, sir. Just one thing I'll slide in real quick. I want to tell everybody, when I mentioned the astral experiences and people not seeing them physical, I'm not putting that down either, okay? Because when we actually experience a different dimension, experienced a different frequency, a different vibration, whatever you want to call it, different density, we experience in a dream-like perception type of a mode. That's just what we are. We're beings of perception. So I don't put down astral experiences, okay? And sometimes, like when you have an experience like I have on that gyroscopic engine that you've seen illustrations of, okay, when I was actually around that thing and seeing these people that were touching that light, they were transparent because they were in their dream body. That's how they were having the contact. They've been bilocated, and they're more busy touching that light. They're not there like I am, about to puke, about to pass out because of this temporal aphasia thing. All right, they're not going through that. And the physical body and the dream energy body do not conform to the same physical laws, at all. So that's why a lot of people have those type of experiences. So I'm not putting down the astral experiences or the dream experiences at all. They're just slightly different. They're a lot different than the physical ones where you can touch things. I've had those too, but they're different than the physical ones. And I think to come up on one of those crocodiles physically would be even more terrifying than seeing your third eye. My personal opinion.
It would be in person. Listen, y'all, I go out and do Bigfoot field research in person, boots on the ground. And there's nothing like seeing a real cryptid, a monster. And I'm not saying Bigfoots are monsters, but some people call them monsters. But seeing something that's not supposed to exist right there in front of you. And it changes your reality for sure. Terrell, hey, Terrell. Okay, Terrell's in the chat tonight. He was mentioning that in the Bible, basically reptilians are called demons. Okay, so that's an interesting point. Sometimes what people consider to be demons would be reptilians, or reptilians are demons. Demons are reptilians.
Well, let's expand the parameters on that a little bit.
Okay.
Wouldn't that then also include serpents? We don't hear about those beings that are serpentine. You got to look at the Nagas, especially when looking at that. The Nagas were big in India. You know what I mean? And we hear so much about the reptilians, we don't always focus much on those beings that were serpents also. And when looking at the illustration of Adam and Eve, it's represented as the snake in the garden, not really the lizard. Food for thought.
That's food for thought. I mean, that gets into, I did some research on like Medusa, and it's all kind of lumped together, like the woman that had the snakes on her head and stuff. It's all very serpent-like. I believe I was tying that in when I had remote viewed the lizard people city underneath Los Angeles. Okay, and
that was real. You got that was real. Is that right?
Yes.
I didn't see that show. Yeah. You got that was real.
Yeah. Oh no, it's definitely real. There's definitely a space down there where, I mean, there's no doubt that it's real. But the question was it actual reptilians, or were they people like humans that went down there to get away from something that was on the surface? There's no doubt that there was some sort of civilization living underneath LA. But I think the question was if it was reptilians. And there's no doubt. I do believe that reptilians have lived subterraneanly, I guess is how you say it, underneath the ground that we walk on. I mean, out in the Grand Canyon, reptilians have been spotted. They say that reptilians have lived under, in the canyon or in the caverns down there. We have lizard man sightings in South Carolina. Okay, down here in the South. That was one of my remote viewing targets, was the lizard man of Scape or Swamp. Okay, that's in Bishopville, South Carolina. I was picking up immediately on a reptilian humanoid. Okay, so They're everywhere. They're here. And I was also picking up on something that was hungry. Okay. I think the target was actually the incident where that young man was changing his tire and something ran at his car, and that's what I was remote viewing. So
Okay, I don't know what you're
yeah,
talking about. Yeah,
yeah,
that's, and there was a few stories that really, and Credo being one, a major one, that really gives us the whole representation of this reptilian thing. And I think it's probably not fair. Okay, so you want to talk about real quick about the the black melanin dominant reptilian?
yes, sure, yeah. Let's hear
You
it.
sure? We don't have
Yes,
to.
please.
We can
No,
talk about something else.
I think
With
it's
the
a
thing.
great. I think it's a great topic. Actually, you did a video on that. You got a lot of views on that video, Barry.
Yeah, considering I've been shadow banned for some time, and I went from having 10,000 views to like, man, I'm lucky if a brother gets like 200 now, but that one seemed to get 1,000 and something, like 14,
Yeah,
1,500. That's cool. And I
it
guess it's
was
the
a lot.
subject of reptilian because I've talked about so many different extraterrestrials, ones that I've had encounters with mostly, and laid a lot of information out about that. But it's scientific. I guess it's not as popular as talking about the mainstream reptilians. And hey, that's cool. It is what it is. But
Yeah.
okay, what happened in this situation here, all right, was a client that had seen me for several past life regressions, all right, and in this, and each one that we had done, I think, which was 4 or 5, each one of them, they have been a warrior of some type, going back, and it normally died a warrior's type of a death, and that's just been their entire existences in these past lives has been being a warrior. So this one particular life, they had chosen a life of respite, one life of not being a warrior. And what they describe is achieving being in a place that is a temple that is outside of Egypt, okay, on a ley line, a grid point, and this temple is either underground or cloaked or something similar to that. All right. And they describe being something that I would almost call an Essene or Benai or some type of religious sect like similar to that. All right. And they described inside this thing, oh, and the year they gave me was around 2500 BC. Okay.
Okay.
And that this temple was helping keeping the Earth's harmonic grid like going, like keeping it solid and energized, things like that. Okay. Now, when they start describing some of the stuff they did, and at one part of the temple was actually 0 point energy, is what we call it now. All right. Fascinating what this individual is saying. And then they start describing extraterrestrials that were walking around in this temple. And when I asked what they were like, they described one that are like taller whites. Okay. And then they described taller, similar to grays, and that these were like peaceful though, giving teachings, and that they were part of this temple. And when I started, is that all there is, all you're seeing? And then they start saying, well, there's the one that this is all about, the one that stays in the 0 point energy and won't really come forward and rarely ever takes the cloak off. And when they start describing this individual, they say, well, he's black, kind of darker black, and he's reptilian. And this is somebody here that is not coming to see me for UFO stuff. All right. At most, they might be into some yoga type of stuff. It's not about that. Okay. So when they start saying this stuff, recording from the super conscious, subconscious, you got to take it real serious. And they're saying, well, he doesn't come out, and they say he's actually in being hidden out here, because even from his own people, he's have to be hidden out, because for them, he's a type of a messiah, because his body was constructed outside the space-time continuum, like by divine forces, materialized. Then he was sent there, and this is what really is a trip. He has to be hidden out because of his thoughts and his ability to focus his thoughts. And I'm like, when I get deeper in this and take it deeper, they start talking about how actually, as long as this individual is on Earth, you have many negative extraterrestrial civilizations that will not come here because he is here, because they fear that he will start thinking about them. And this thought process, this client starts talking about how this individual can focus their thoughts so thoroughly that it becomes some type of beyond a laser, like beyond a Star Trek phaser, but it's capable of destroying races and planets, destroying planets. When he focuses on that, he focuses on evil and will destroy it. So many will not come because they're afraid he might start thinking about them. So the only way is to try to assassinate him from the humanoid aspect. Now this was, I mean, this stuff, like I said, this stuff had me flabbergasted, all right? And she describes an individual, darker than me with these yellow type eyes, or just a different one and different type of reptilian that we're not hearing about. Because I asked, if the individual's seen any reptilian illustrations, a few. Does it look like any? He look like any of them? No. And where he came from was not Draco, was somewhere else, another galaxy. See what I'm saying? So this is what we're dealing with here, and what we're not being told, and historically wise. I mean, it is what it is. I have to accept that's coming from the client, something they've lived and experienced. So we don't know what all went on here, what the year 2500 BC and things of that nature, and things before, just after the Great Flood I talked about, that Randall Carlson has proved. And really, that was the end of the Ice Age, really, when those three impacts happened. That was the end of the Ice Age. And then what kind of happened and came right after that, who was populating here, and all these different epics we have had here.
Yeah. Okay.
So
this is
probably real long, but hopefully that really. One thing. Okay, just real quick. When thinking about this individual, something that came to my mind was the episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation. Sorry, I can't remember the exact name of the episode, but it's where they go to this planet that had been devastated, a colony, a Federation colony, and when they get there, it was 1 green acre and 1 house there, and this old man dancing with his wife, and Deanna Troi starts hearing music in her head, and she's going crazy. All right, and the ship, there's a ship comes and tries to run them off. They go back several times, and it turns out, Picard actually figured out that he beams them up, and he said that woman said, "You're not real," and said, "Here, the only thing that still lives here on Rana, the name of the planet." And it comes out, he says he was a Dowd, an immortal being from another galaxy that lives amongst false disguises and illusions. And he took a human form and fell in love with a woman when in this galaxy, and they went to that planet to live their late last years, and the ship came and destroyed it, and she went to fight and she died. And he says that he lynched out and destroyed him. And Picard looks at him and said, "Was that where you're trying to hide from us? You destroyed that ship?" And he looks at him and says, "You don't understand the scope of my crime. I didn't just destroy that ship or 100. They're called the Ushnuk, 100 or 1,000 or 1,000,000. He said, I destroy them all Ushnuk everywhere in existence." And he's looking at him saying, is the love of a woman worse than the genocide of a whole race?
Oh my gosh.
I mean, but when you think about that, Picard's kind of like, oh, well, we don't have no laws to fit your crime. Just beam them all down and create your illusions and just dance with your wife more, whatever, man. That's the point being, when dealing with that type of immortality and super immortality consciousness, we have to evaluate these type of things. It's very fascinating. Sorry, I'll shut up now. That's all.
No, I mean, as you're saying that, I'm just thinking, there are benevolent reptilians, and then there are the malevolent reptilians. Okay. And the majority of what we hear about and what we think about, what I think about when I hear about reptilians, is something that's very negative and destructive, just like what you were talking about. Not super benevolent. But I've met people who claim to have contact with benevolent reptilians, and they say they're here protecting the planet, just like a lot of the ETs from all over the universe, and I guess inner Earth as well, are doing. So they're here to help. But
okay, one more little caveat. All right.
Okay.
Another client. They came to me for having night terrors, but they're not sure what they are, and to the point that they're being woke up by their spouse and having to wake them up and stuff. but they also had them in childhood. And I picked up psychically that there was contactee. So I went ahead and did this regression with them. And it turns out that, okay, once they get past this screen memory, because these beings will give screen memories to the people. And, you know, they're seeing like one is a machine taking their semen, and then these doctors behind a control panel and this glass, they're like conducting this AI that's doing this. There's like 5 of them. And they given the screen memory to the client that they're these doctors, but first they see that that's not what they are. You get them what they actually look like, okay, getting through that screen memory. What the client described as one being about almost 8 feet tall, looking like a bald eagle, the head of a bald eagle type of humanoid. Another one just a little shorter, being this reptilian, okay, a little bit different than the ones that we're hearing described, though, very tall, though. Another one being an octopus being about 6 feet tall, with maybe a little shorter, with just the humanoid, the octopus thing. The other one being almost 7-8 foot tall as the other two, dog man. And the client described, this is somebody that doesn't even know what a dog man fully was. They're not into this stuff. Okay, but they described this dog man as having on something that's similar to an Egyptian type of a uniform, but it's not, it's different. And they described them as being looking like a German shepherd with the head ears down. And then, so this is going on, and this experience, and then what they're doing is they're trying to create hybrids of this client in their dimension. Each one of them is from a different dimension, different density, frequency, and they're creating hybrids there. And then this is what was giving the client nightmares, is that they were trying to fracture their soul to inhabit these hybrids. Okay, and that's what was giving them nightmares. That fractionary process they were trying to do. And you know, when all this is over, what I just told you, and to me, look, that sounds terrible, yo. I'm trying not to cuss. That sounds terrible, straight up. And when I asked, I said, you know, do you consider this a negative experience? And they, no. Why not? Why are they doing this to you? And you know what they say? This is why I'm telling you this. They say, well, the thing is that they're trying to do the hybrids in their dimensions, and also trying to use the soul because they want to know why we're able to love the way we are and they can't. Why we can love so intensely and why they can't. And also they want to know what happens when we die and why we go directly to the creator and they don't. We can and they can't. They want to know why. So they're trying to evolve themselves to be more compassion. They're trying to have more compassion. And the client is saying they have compassion. Each one of them does, but it's more like kind of like earth animals have it. They have compassion too and emotions, but it's not like ours. And they're not, although they have the technology, they're not evolved on the spirit level like us, the creator thing, the God thing. You know, and I tell you, for all the crap we hear, that says a lot about what we are as humanity. We are special. We are something. Yeah. It is what it is. I'm just telling you what happened in the data is all I can do, like you do. About the data.
Yeah. Well, it's just fascinating that these are people who are your, you know, they're your clients when you do hypnotherapy sessions, and so they have probably no idea. They're not watching the Cryptid Hunters channel. They don't know who I am. They don't know that we're doing these shows. They probably don't know about Dogman and Bigfoot. I mean, not to say they don't, but we don't know if they do. But that's interesting that they would describe things like that. And it sounds really interesting with the fragmented. How they fragment their memories and their consciousness and try to put it into the different dimensions and the different bodies. I mean, it sounds a lot like some of the things you hear coming out of the secret space program. And some of the people that we know out of that program.
The inability to put a fraction of a soul into a clone body. Something's off there. You know, we've heard about, though, when you start looking really at some of those dark projects, and I'm no authority on that, but I remember when it was the Basis 18, there was that gentleman, Alistair, that came forward and was talking about, he was even doing description of a type of soul trap machinery that was used to produce some type of a false light to lure an immortal soul towards it and then try to encase it in one of those bodies. You know, so I know that's where a lot of the false light stuff comes from, and some of the talk about that, you know. But still, when dealing with all these near death or all these regressions, I have yet to have anyone that describes that happening to them before they reincarnate. I have yet one of them to say, hey, my guide's making me reincarnate over here. Or, hey, the light's making me reincarnate over here. Hey, God is. None of that. It's always they're choosing to. Every person I've dealt with so far. And when that changes, I'll let you know. But it's going to be a few people now, quite a few, to not have encountered it yet. So that tells me, you know, how much of what we're told is just BS.
Yeah. Well, hey, we're compiling data. We're getting information. We're hearing stories from other people. Lisa Martino, thank you so much for that super sticker. It's so appreciated here. You know, we're just discussing it and putting it out there and kind of putting our thoughts together on all this, trying to figure these things out together, Barry. And you are the best to have come on Spaced Out Radio tonight to talk about this. We have actually come to the end of the hour, Barry. This went by so fast.
I overtalked you kind of, so sorry.
No, not at all. Look, I brought you here to share your knowledge with us tonight, and you did exactly that. And this has been amazing. And we had a big audience tonight. I want to thank everybody for being here. This has been pretty kick-ass tonight. I knew that this would bring in a nice crowd because everybody is so interested in reptilian humanoids.
You know, I got too excited. I wasn't looking at the chat. Was it going pretty good?
It was going great. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Barry, tell everybody where they can find your YouTube and get in touch with you, please.
YouTube under Barry Littleton. Please come on over, subscribe, check out the playlist. A bunch of stuff that won't come up unless you use the playlist. I'm also on Patreon under Barry Littleton, but I need to actually do some more work on there and up that a little bit. I've done a lot of stuff on YouTube, and my website's barrylittleton.com, but the best place right now is to catch me is on YouTube and Facebook. I do a lot of posting on there. I try to. So, and thanks to the audience, very kind audience you have, and thank you for having me on here. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
Always do work with you, my friend. Always. It's always.
Oh my gosh. You have an open invite, Barry. I wish you'd come on with my shows every time. I swear, you're so awesome, and we have some great conversations. Okay,
I won't get no carrots thrown at me.
I'm not kidding either. I'm being for real. Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, Barry, we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Okay. You take care. Everybody, go subscribe to Barry Littleton on YouTube and Patreon. You will not regret it. Okay. See you, Barry. Have a good night.
Take care. God bless.
Okay. All right, y'all. That was fantastic. What a great show tonight. Oh my gosh. Okay, don't forget that right after this show, After Hours has something planned for you guys. I do believe it might be a rerun tonight of a re-airing, let's just say, of another show. But it's going to be fantastic no matter what. You guys, I will see you guys back here next weekend. Don't forget that I do have live shows on my channel this week over at the Cryptid Huntress on YouTube. Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern and Thursday at 8. I have a fantastic remote viewing target for y'all. It may involve a werewolf on a trail cam. Okay, so y'all come see me this weekend. For now, I'm the Cryptid Huntress. I'm Jessica Jones. I'm headed off the trail. I will see you guys this week over on my channel and then back here this weekend. Thank y'all so much for the super stickers and the super chats. We so appreciate that so much. And I hope you guys have a great night. Y'all have a great week. Bye, y'all.